In this episode of the Arsenal Roundup, I'm going to be looking forward to the summer and talking about a player who I think might give Arsenal a bit more creative and attacking spark, but he doesn't play at centre forward. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. This is an episode of the Arsenal Roundup and I am delighted to be doing this episode this morning because when the games get crazy, just don't have that much time to cover bits and bobs in the news and maybe some of these more kind of looking forward hypothetical pieces that are fun to do and they're fun to chat about, and the summer's going to be a little bit more full of stuff like this. Who should Arsenal sign? Who should Arsenal sell? How did we do last season? How can we improve tactically next season? It's all going to be kind of that hypothetical position, which, you know, sometimes that's quite fun. I love the games. I love the flow of the games. And I promise you, come August, I will be desperate for the season to start again. But it's been a long, tiring one, hasn't it? And we'll all be looking forward to maybe some nice transfer news coming in. We've obviously already had good news about Martin Zubimendi. That looks like it's basically on the edge of being done. Just needs to be signed, really. Obviously, that Zubimendi news came from Fabrizio Romano in the week just gone, and Fabrizio Romano has added in a new rumour. Now, this isn't a rumour directly related to Arsenal, but it's a rumour about a player that I think Arsenal really should be looking at. You'll have seen his name from the title. That's right, Xavi Simons from RB Leipzig. Before I talk about him, just want to say a massive thank you for being here. A massive thank you for listening to the show. If you're a follower, welcome back. If you are new here, welcome for the first time. Really love having new people and new people from all over the world. We have had new listeners this month from Brazil, South Korea and Singapore, so welcome guys if you are from any of those countries. I'm going to talk about Xavi Simons today, and then I'm also going to talk about a couple of bits of news related specifically to Arsenal players who we already have, because there's some interesting stuff about Leandro Trossard and Kai Havertz coming out. So, Xavi Simons, the update from Fabrizio Romano reads, Xavi Simons ready to leave RB Leipzig in the summer transfer window. Plan confirmed as reported in the recent months. He's ready for a new chapter with top Premier League clubs and Bayern all attentive to his situation for the next weeks. RB Leipzig aware of the player's plan to try a new club with talks and negotiations to follow from this month. Exciting. So Xavi Simons is a player who has, he's incredibly young. I believe he's 22, but he has been around the block. He's played at Leipzig, he's played at PSG, and he's impressed across Europe, really. If let's be honest, he's been a really impressive, exciting player. Yeah, he is 22, just confirmed that. He's an impressive, exciting player, and he is an attacking wonder kid, I guess you could say. Now, it's really interesting that Bayern are looking at Xavi Simons because Florian Wirtz is also available from Leverkusen. Bayern are looking at him. Manchester City are looking at him. Apparently, Liverpool are also looking at him. So, Florian Wirtz is an unbelievable player. Bundesliga are producing some fantastic talents. And look, Florian Wirtz, if he went to Manchester City, that would be scary. That would be a really scary prospect. He's the kind of player Arsenal should be in for, but I just don't think we can go huge on a attacking midfielder this year. I think we've got to go huge in the striker department, and we've got to add other players elsewhere. Xavi Simons, in a weird way, might be a cost-effective solution. Now, RB Leipzig are not going to let him go cheap. That's for certain. I wonder if he will be... There hasn't been a price reported, but I wonder if he will be sort of around the £60-ish million mark. That's kind of where I would say I would pay for him. Because, he is very young. He's got tons of resale value and he has a good history. RB Leipzig have had a horrible year and he has been a small bright spark in that year. It looks like there is a decent chance Leipzig don't get any European football whatsoever. If that were to happen, that might bring that price down. It might make it more of an option because the player will really be pushing at that point and the club will probably be forced to generate some additional cash. So it's really interesting that the movers and shakers in this area are going to be so interesting this year, because lots of clubs need a striker, lots of clubs need attacking talent generally. Xavi Simons is available and will be available, and there's a lot of other players just kind of might be moving. We might see a really interesting transfer merry-go-round this year. Arsenal need to add an attacking midfielder, in my opinion. As much as I really want to see a striker and a left winger come in, I think this position is just as important. Martin Odegaard, we've seen this year, has dipped below his best. And not only that, he's not had any cover. He's had his first major injury in his career, and because of that, he was rushed back. Because he has no cover, he was rushed back from that injury, maybe a little bit quick. And if we had someone like Xavi Simons, I wonder if we'd be talking about Martin Odegaard in a different way this year, because we wouldn't have rushed him back. We wouldn't have felt the reliance on him, and he would have been able to sit down a bit more and not look quite as tired as he has done over the previous months. Why do I think Xavi Simons could be that guy? Well, first of all, he is kind of a left central creator, whereas Martin Odegaard is a right central creator. He is a left central creator, and I think that's a really interesting point, because at the moment we have Mikel Merino, Declan Rice, who can play that position and do play that position quite regularly. We've obviously also got Kai Havertz, who can drop in there if we need him to. But we love to have players at Arsenal who are dual roles. They do two things in the squad. Take Declan Rice, he's a perfect example. Left 8 and 6. Ben White, centre-back, right-back. Jurrien Timber, across the whole of the back line, to be fair. We really like these players, and Arteta really values these players. If you look at Xavi Simons and his kind of history this year, he is one of these players. He can play in the forward line, on the right-hand side, in attacking midfield, on the left-hand side, and kind of also as a forward if he needs to. And I think it's really interesting to maybe go and get a player, perhaps in the ilk of Smith Rowe, who can play in that left 8 as a very attacking option. Could, if we needed him to, be a left winger in certain scenarios or certain situations, but could also be full cover for Martin Odegaard if we wanted to go with a midfield. Let's say we switch where our primary creator is for a game, and he's actually on the left, in the left 8 spot. Maybe Declan Rice takes up the right 8 spot, and we have Zubimendi at 6. I think that's a really interesting option as well. So Xavi Simons gives you options. If you wanted to rest Martinelli or whichever left winger we sign, you could do that with Xavi Simons. You could go against the low blocks. You could go Simons and Odegaard with Rice in behind them, and you could go Simons to kind of understudy Martin Odegaard. I think he'd get plenty of game time, I think is what I'm saying. I think he'd be really, really valuable. When you compare Xavi Simons to a lot of Arsenal players this season, I haven't done full careers, I've done this season, it's really, really interesting to see. Now, I've compared him here to Ethan Nwaneri, Mikel Merino, Leandro Trossard and Martin Odegaard. Why those players? Well, I just think those guys kind of occupy a similar position in terms of Mikel Merino, left 8, Martin Odegaard, primary creator. But then Ethan and Leo also, they operate in that kind of, we can play multiple positions, we can move in and out of the attack. They're not dead set starters. I think you look at Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, dead set starters. Gabriel Martinelli is more of an out and out winger, so I've excluded him. And these are players that actually, I think, apart from Martin Odegaard, of course, they all kind of rotate in and out. So I think it's really, really interesting to see how Xavi Simons compares to these guys who rotate in and out, because I think our best 11 is good enough, right? Our best 11 is good enough to win the big trophies as it is right now. If you keep everyone fit for the season, I think we do go and win trophies. But of course, we know we need the level of these guys to be really, really high. The guys who come in and out. Mikel Merino's done a sterling job this year up front. Leandro Trossard's had a better end to the season than he had start of the season. And of course, Ethan Nwaneri has been brilliant, but is obviously very, very young. So that's kind of where I see him in the squad. If he was to come in, I don't necessarily think he is a dead set starter for every game, but I think he would get at least 30 to 40 appearances in a season, which, would be, I think that for a 22-year-old coming into a humongous club, he's had 24 starts in the Bundesliga this year, so that's about what he's looking at with Leipzig anyway. In terms of goals and assists in comparison to those players, per 90, only Ethan Nwaneri can match him. Mikel Merino, Leandro Trossard and Martin Odegaard are all far, far less this season. Xavi Simons is on 0.66 goals and assists per 90, which is a really good return. 2 games in every 3, he is getting a goal or an assist. But the one thing that really caught my eye when I was looking at this set of players is the kind of goals minus the XG. So this is basically how well you've outperformed your XG. And Xavi Simons has outperformed his XG of 4.6, so he's a fantastic finisher. The next best in that list of players is 2.9, Ethan Nwaneri, and we know how good we think he is as a finisher. So looking at that is a huge overperformance, a really positive sign. And again, this is in a Leipzig team that have struggled this year. You know, this is not Leipzig of previous years where, pardon me, where they are really, really cooking and doing a great job. Of that as well, you know, he has only really received, I think it's 7.1 progressive passes per game. So to be fair, that is not a huge amount of service for a kind of attacking midfielder, winger player. And he's outperforming his XG. He's outscoring these guys that we've got. So the stats all look very, very positive. And then when you go and watch Xavi Simons, you can see what Arsenal might be missing in him. How Arsenal could use Xavi Simons to really, really start to enhance their team, enhance their attacking output. He's heavily focused on that left-hand side. You know, he is a right-footed player. He's the reverse of Martin Odegaard, really. He's right-footed, coming in from that inside left channel. We've spoken a lot about how the left side underperforms, and this year it's done a bit more of its job. But in comparison to that White Odegaard Saka pod on the right hand side, it hasn't performed over recent years. And we've tried so many different solutions to solve it. We've tried Rice, Xhaka, Marino. We've tried different left back options: Calafiori, Zinchenko, Lewis Skelly, Tierney. All slightly different styles and different ways of doing things, but we've stuck mainly with the kind of industrious left 8, and Arteta likes that, right? And I guess the case against Xavi Simons is he's a pretty small guy. Arsenal Arteta like the big physical players who can win duels, win aerial battles. And often that left 8 is tasked with doing that, getting up high and supporting the striker in winning duels and winning the second ball as well. So is Xavi Simons that guy? I guess that might be a bit of a red mark against his name, and maybe why Arsenal and Arteta won't go for him. But he does play in that left central zone. He can play very far out on the left as well, which I think is super interesting. We've seen that multiple times with Granit Xhaka and now Declan Rice, of that left 8 player drifting super far out to the left and basically filling the left winger role in build-up. But interestingly, I think he on his heat map, you can see he drives into the box and does a really good job. And he's not scared to go right. You know, you watch some of his highlights, there are definitely moments where he has drifted over to that side and he can play on that side. He's got a fantastic corner, fantastic delivery on him. And for me, it's the way he runs at players. You know, Martin Odegaard has an ability to run at players, commit them, but we've seen that really drop off, I think, this season, simply because of the fitness and stuff that we've already spoken about. I won't relitigate that. But Xavi Simons does it in a slightly different way. It's far less about manipulating his man to then try and find a wide gap. He's more than happy to run really, really tight at whoever's trying to stop him and try and, rather than kind of trying to, as Martin Odegaard does, set that man one way and jink the other and kind of rely on the fact that player is off balance and that sort of thing. Xavi Simons is much more direct. He is far more comfortable running at pace, driving at players and just skipping past them. And then he's very, very good at releasing the ball nice and early. So I like him as a player. I think it would be a really good option. For me, there are 4 positions Arsenal need to sign this year. A defensive midfielder, maybe 2. That's a bit worrying. But let's say a defensive midfielder. A striker, as we all know. A left winger. So the striker and the left winger for me to come in and compete with Havertz and then kind of compete with Gabriel Martinelli as well in the left winger spot. But then it's this spot, the attacking midfielder spot. Let's take some of the load off Martin Odegaard. The case for saying that this isn't a good signing is Xavi Simons will be expensive. Okay, like I said, I think he'll be sort of 60-ish million quid, maybe less if they don't get into Europe, but 60-ish million feels like where he will be at. That's not based on anything, by the way, guys. That's just pure gut instinct of players of his quality, coming from the team he's coming from, all of that sort of stuff. So he'll be expensive, and will that be our priority? We've already spent 50 on Zubimendi. We've got to try and get a striker, and they are not going to come cheap because the market is so in such a strange position. We're looking at Gyökeres for 60. Sesko might be 60 as well. If we don't get one of them, we're paying much more than that for an Ekitike or an Isak, who would be incredibly expensive, almost too expensive in my opinion. So can we afford to allocate 60 million to Xavi Simons? Now, I know we've had the links to El Kanous at Leicester. That's been around 30 million. So maybe they are looking at this position, but more in that price bracket. That worries me, to be honest, because the backup to Martin Odegaard still needs to be a really, really good player. I don't know. I probably haven't watched enough of El Kanous to judge him right now, but he's not a name that fills me with excitement, let's be honest. So I worry about that. So yeah, we've got the price. That's going to be an issue, and managing the finances. I guess the other argument is Ethan Nwaneri will be developing in that spot long term. Now, we know that Arsenal sent Fabio Vieira away on loan to give Ethan Nwaneri playing time this year. They created that pathway for him. They said, Fabio, thank you very much, but you've just not done enough, really. Ethan will be coming in. Now, in my mind, I've kind of allocated Ethan Nwaneri in my kind of squad hierarchy for next season under Bukayo Saka on that right wing. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But we know that those comments have been said before, and we know that actually maybe the long-term plan is for Ethan Nwaneri as a central player. We've spoken before, or Arteta's spoken before, about how good of a finisher he is. Maybe they're not planning on buying an attacking midfielder this summer because they think they've got him already. They think, actually, Ethan's had his year, and because of the injury to Saka, he's played a lot at the right wing, and we've enjoyed him there. It's good development, but for next season, he will be Martin Odegaard's backup. And maybe they look at kind of signing a winger that can play on both sides and create kind of a three-winger system with Saka, Martinelli and one new player. That could be an option that they go down. That's a more economical option, of course. But for me, I would love to see another player who is like ready, has been there and done it. And I'm not saying been there and done it and won major trophies, because I think only Xavi Simons has only really won the league with PSG. I don't know if he's won anything else in his career. I would prefer a player who has played at the highest level for a consistent amount of time, a consistent period of time. 29 games this year for Xavi Simons. He has been around the block already at 22. I would prefer to see another one of those players come in to support Martin Odegaard, because ultimately, if you look at someone like Ethan Nwaneri, he's still very, very young and he's still developing. We've seen physical problems for him this year. How much time will he legitimately be able to take off Martin Odegaard this season? I don't know. I really don't know. And I think we need someone who can really allow Martin Odegaard to sit down and rest. So, look, I think he's a brilliant player. I think he fits a hole in our squad in terms of that left eight, where he's slightly less industrial, a little bit more exciting and direct, and fits that hole in the squad about backing up Martin Odegaard. But the expense might just mean that we have to prioritise resource elsewhere. Ethan Nwaneri's place might mean we need to prioritise resource elsewhere. Let me know, guys. Comment on my Blue Sky account. That's Arsenal-Unfiltered at bsky.social.com. Get in touch with me there. Would you sign Xavi Simons? I think he would be a fantastic option if we can make the finances work. We could sell some players maybe to fund this move. Maybe. You never know. Zinchenko probably going to go. We're going to lose some big wages in Jorginho and Tierney and maybe Thomas Partey. So, look, we'll see how all of that develops. Let's talk a little closer to home now, and let's talk Leandro Trossard. And I guess that kind of relates to this Xavi Simons discussion, because there are reports coming out, and I believe it's mainly come from Charles Watts and David Ornstein, apologies if I've got that wrong. I've just seen it over the last few days. That Leandro Trossard is in talks for a new contract with Arsenal. This is a strange one for me, and I've seen really divided opinions on this since it broke. Now, Leandro Trossard has a goal or an assist every other game for Arsenal this season. That's 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 in total. Just one less than Xavi Simons this season, but in far more game time, unfortunately. Trossard goes hot and cold. We all know that. That's been a feature of his Arsenal career. Sometimes he comes into the team and we're thinking, well, he's never going to lose his place. He is an unbelievable finisher, and he is so dangerous for Arsenal in that attacking line. How is Martinelli ever going to get back in? And then sometimes you watch him and you go, I can't see you. You're not in the game. And I think that's one reason why Mikel Arteta has continued to favour Gabriel Martinelli is, whilst Gabriel Martinelli has his shortcomings, and I am banging that drum that actually Martinelli should be a squad player next year and we should sign a really, really elite left winger, Martinelli is always in a game, whether that's defensively or offensively. Is his output as good as Trossard's? Probably not. Is his delayed decision making sometimes frustrating for fans? Absolutely. But I think that's why Arteta favours him, in the sense he's always contributing. Sometimes when Trossard comes on the pitch, you're like, it feels like we're playing a man down here, because he just cannot get involved. So he really does blow hot and cold. The other thing is, I believe he's 29 or 30. I don't know if he's actually tipped into the 30 mark yet. He is. He was 30 last year. So yeah, he's 30 years old. So giving him a new contract would be bold, to say the least. But look, I mean, it's hard to argue with his outturn. You know, those stats I just read to you were league stats. He's also got another 4 goals and assists, so that would take him to 18 in total for this season. So he's an interesting player. The one thing that I have read that really intrigued me is that Arsenal are keen to keep him based on his fitness and his ability to stay at a high level of fitness late into his career. And that's interesting, right? Because actually, I think usually we look at people that turn 30 and we say, whoa, you're probably on the way out now. That, you know, this is, you're looking at your last contract. But it isn't necessarily the truth. Players who maybe start a little bit later, maybe don't fly into senior football in their teens, and players who are just generally fitter and have had less injuries in their time can stay and play for a longer period of time. I don't remember Trossard having a major injury, definitely not with us. But, you know, if he hasn't had a major injury in his career and he's still fit and still performing at the level, then maybe 30 isn't the worst thing in the world. Maybe there's a big sale being lined up for Gabriel Martinelli to go and fund this massive transfer window that we've got planned. Of course, we know that Arsenal have funds available. It's been reported that there's 100 million just sat there ready to go. Arsenal are nowhere near their PSR bracket, so it could be really interesting to see who we bring in. But I still think with the names that we're being linked with and the summer that we're being linked with, the scale of the work we've got to do, I still think there is a potential that a sale happens this summer as well to fund some of that, and Andrea Berta will have a big job making that happen. So maybe it's Martinelli, and maybe they're saying we're going to sign a left winger, we're going to keep Trossard because he's still fit, he's still firing, still scoring goals off the bench, and crucially he will add experience or keep experience in the squad, which could be very, very useful for Arsenal in the coming seasons and years, right? So maybe that's the move that they're going for. For me, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. I think as Trossard gets older, regardless of whether he is super fit still or not, I think that coming in and out, going hot and cold, will kind of only get worse. That isn't something that tends to get better with time, unless you're a very, very young player like Ethan Nwaneri and you need to kind of build that experience. I think that Trossard, that's just how he is. You know, some games he can't get into. And actually, there were some links with Trossard having interest from Saudi and stuff like that. I would try and get 25-30 million for Trossard, keep Martinelli in the squad, buy a superstar left winger, and have Martinelli competing with that left winger and trying to get game time off him, because I think Martinelli will develop better in a position where he can actually take some time to sit back a bit. He's played so much football since he came to Arsenal as a very young man. Sit back a bit, watch someone, watch from the sidelines, kind of learn, kind of take things on, and then he has to, develop. He has to perform when he comes on against tired legs. Martinelli never gets to run against tired legs. Never. So I think that would be a really interesting thing to see a little bit more. And we have seen him really terrorise some defenders. So I think he would be a fantastic off-the-bench option. Get 25 million for Trossard, I'd be very, very happy. So that's how I would take it. But also, noting Trossard's record, I'm not going to be apoplectically angry if he does re-sign. The one thing I am delighted about, though, and is the final piece of news I will cover today, is the return of Kai Havertz. He is back in training. That is just fantastic news for me. We have missed him so much, haven't we? I think there are two players in the Arsenal squad that are so tactically important to us. One is David Raya. We've seen how we've changed since he came in for Aaron Ramsdale, and he's been really, really fantastic for us. But the other is Kai Havertz, and we see how we play off him and how he can do two roles. He can do what Trossard does when Trossard plays up front in the dropping in, running at people, driving with the ball, and then moving around the outside of Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli as well. Kai can do that, but he can also do the Mikel Merino role of pinning a centre-back, winning that first ball and playing a pass to one of the wingers or Martin Odegaard and getting us up the pitch as we go over the press. So, look, I'm delighted to have Kai Havertz back. I'm sure people who have been listening since the start of this podcast will be aware of how big a fan I am of Kai Havertz and everything that he does for Arsenal and the club. He is such an unselfish runner. To have him back, maybe for this Newcastle game, I presume he'll be on the bench. Delighted, absolutely delighted. Okay, guys, that is episode 15 of the Arsenal Roundup. I'm going to leave it there. I'd love for us to sign Xavi Simons. I think he is a perfect player to be a Martin Odegaard backup and add creativity and spark and directness into our attack. But the money and the Ethan Nwaneri situation might not allow that to happen. Arsenal are looking at a new contract for Leandro Trossard. It wouldn't be the way I go, but also you can see why they're doing it. And Kai Havertz is back in training. Some great news there. We obviously have the Newcastle game coming up. I will preview that for you this Friday, I believe, or maybe Saturday. Saturday, because it's Thursday today. I'm losing track of the days. And I'm looking forward to that game in a weird way. I always look forward to the games when there's been like no midweek game and there's been a week pass. But obviously still a little bit nervous with Newcastle hot on our heels, and our record against them this year has been terrible. Look, if we play like we did in the second half against Liverpool, against Newcastle, I've got no doubts. And I guess the other piece of news is Rice and Trossard are in training. So I reported that they were probably going to be out of this game because of injuries and the like. They are in training, and they were in the open training session earlier this week. So that could be a big help if they are available for the game. So yeah, nervous, but if we play like we played in the second half against Liverpool, we will be fine. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode or any episode of Arsenal Unfiltered or the Arsenal Roundup, as this show is, please do consider just following the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you get it from. Just go and follow the podcast. What that will mean is that you get 3 episodes entirely free straight into your device every single week. Covering match reviews, match previews, and all the news surrounding Arsenal, as well as tactical analysis. And of course, coming up into the summer, we'll be doing tons and tons of transfer stuff. So stick around for that. All that's left to say, guys, is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.